You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What's up, Cal fans? We are back with the ultimate episode of this podcast, our preseason prediction pod. We are of course, the Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm joined by my co-host, Rob, and then we have a special guest today, founder of the podcast, co-founder of the podcast, friend of the podcast.
I'll take friend.
All of them.
Of the pod.
All of them. Overall, college football guru, wizard, never wrong, former rival.
You're doing too much.
Former Rivals chief editor, and now happily retired and back to casual fan, Trace Travers.
I should put that on my LinkedIn because no one else is going to read it anyway. But yeah, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me. This is the first Cal-related podcast I've done in a while. So let's
the best. Only the
6
best.
months, yeah. So,
He's
good
back,
time.
baby. He's back.
Yeah,
We got him back.
No, it's
Yeah,
it's a good
we're
year.
slowly reeling everyone back in.
Yeah,
Just slowly, everyone's coming back.
it's a black hole. You slowly get dragged into it, and it kills the light of the entire universe or something. I don't know physics.
We will all supernova at some point.
There you go.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, but we're here for the preview pod. Our first year in the ACC. Our first year with Mike Blesh. A lot of firsts. You know, I was at the women's volleyball game earlier this week, or on Saturday, so last week. And seeing the ACC logo on the court, man, is
Confusing?
I got feelings. Yeah, it was very nostalgic, but still feelings. But how are we feeling about the season so far, guys?
Well, it hasn't started yet, so it's kind of hard
It's
to
true.
feel anything.
Could you imagine to be like, I feel terrible. It's going so
I
poorly.
wasn't allowed to have feelings, so it's hard to have them.
I got nothing but optimism, baby. This is the best time of the year.
It is. Hope springs anew for Andy every single August for 4 weeks, and then the moment Cal stumbles, not even a loss, but just stumbles in a game, he's like, it's done. It's over. It's over.
So second quarter, September 7th is what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Trace, you feel good about the Davis game? I feel good about the Davis game.
As good as I can feel. I never feel good about anything. I've been around too long. I've been raised around people whose main opinions about Cal were. Are we allowed to swear on this?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
They could charitably be called bitching and moaning. So I grew up with my great grandfather complaining about Tom Holmoe's offense. So that is a vivid memory as far back as I have memories. So
I have a memory of that big game. I think I've said this on the podcast before. My dad and I were going back on the 51 bus, and I remember turning to him after the big game that year and asking why we always had to lose.
do you remember if that was the overtime one in 2000 or? trying to remember back that far.
No, if it was Homo, it was only 1 year.
It was 98 or 2000 that they had in Berkeley. And we're thinking.
And we're thinking.
On a podcast where they can't see our faces, we go silent because we're all looking up into the sky, thinking. Hilarity. But let's get into it, guys.
Pretty sure that was. Did you say 2000, Trace?
What year was it?
Looking it up. Yeah, it was the OT game. I remember LaShawn Ward had some diving catch. I only remember this because we had a writing assignment at school, and I remember writing about how sad I was that they lost.
Dude, that's actually hilarious. I always thought that Homo only had 1 season as head coach. He had
4. It was
4
a long
seasons,
time.
and he was so
No,
bad.
You're thinking of Mariucci.
No.
Mariucci had 1 year.
Yeah, he had 1 year, but he was good.
Yeah.
I just remember Homo being so bad because of the 2001 game, where the only reason – I was just talking about this with a guy that was it was Cal, I think, 04. And he was like, the only reason why we won that game in 2001 was because the game got rescheduled because of 9/11. And that if we had played the Rutgers game when we were supposed to play it, we definitely would have lost. But because of the fact that it was rescheduled to end the season, Rutgers didn't care about the game at all, and therefore we won. Otherwise, we would have had a winless season.
Do you know who their coach was at the time for Rutgers?
I only know Schiano as a
It was the
Rutgers
first
coach.
season of Greg Schiano, the first go-around for them.
No way.
Learn something.
Life is just a gigantic circle. Gigantic circle. Okay, Rob, what are we talking about today?
All right, so Cal starts the season this week, Saturday, August 31st, against Davis at 2 p.m. You'll get to watch that on the ACCN Plus channel on ESPN Plus. You don't need a subscription to watch that. You just need a login.
That's made up. Everything's made up, but still.
It's true.
Hey, I have a fun fact, actually. That'll help our viewers. I have YouTube TV. I saw a couple people on Right for California saying they had YouTube TV and where can they watch the game. Well, this won't help you watch it live if you were like me and wanted to have the full recording to be able to watch. It is scheduled to air at 10 o'clock on YouTube TV Saturday night, I believe, according to my YouTube TV schedule. So yeah, at least there will be easy rewatching.
Well, there's easy rewatching on the ESPN thing too. If you have any cable service or TV subscription, like YouTube TV included, you just go to ESPN or ESPN Plus, and then you use that login, like your TV subscription login, and you can watch the game live, and then also just watch it on demand as well. I think it lasts for like 30 days.
People, if you're listening to this, you're probably within the greater San Francisco Bay Area metropolitan area. So
it's true. It's true. After that, the Bears travel to Auburn, which a lot of us will be at. Then we come home to San Diego State. Then we go to Florida State the week after to start our ACC conference schedule. Then we host Miami. Then we go to Pitt. Then we host North Carolina State for homecoming weekend. Then we host Oregon State in, of course, our regularly season programming of Oregon State midseason. And then we travel to Winston-Salem to take on Wake Forest on a Friday night game.
They're not even in Wake Forest. There's a Wake Forest, North Carolina that they are not in. That pisses me off.
Winston-Salem, yeah. And then we come home to host Syracuse. Then the big game on the 23rd of November. And then we end the season November 30th in Dallas, Texas against SMU. I will ask for your guys' predictions on the season as a whole with the wins and losses at the end. But for now, let's dive right into the team. Where would you guys want to start? You want to start offense, defense?
You've seen many more practices than both of us. Let's make that clear. I went to one practice.
Yes. But you did come to an important one, though.
Yeah.
You did
Funny
come to
part
the
is I actually talked with Wilcox afterwards. So
you did.
But we'll go into that later.
Andy, where do you want to start? You want to start offense? You want to start defense? You want to start like overall?
Let's start special teams.
Oh, okay. We'll start with special teams. The special teams unit, I think, in terms of kicking, it's probably going. Of course, I think it's probably going to be Ryan Coe.
Mm-hmm.
I think the backup Derek Morris has a lot of good attributes about him. He has a very, very good leg. I think he's the starter come next year. But for now, it is Ryan Coe. He's the most experienced. It makes the most sense. I think kick returning is probably any of the speed guys that we've added over the last two portals. So Keon, Tobias, Noel Williams was back there for a few. Trevor Rogers, the freshman out of Acalanes. And also, who am I missing? Am I missing anyone else?
Brady back there. Matthews?
Yeah, you're missing Brady as well. Yeah, and then Mikey. Yeah, and then I think punt returning you have Mikey Matthews. You have a bit more of the agility guys, I think, on the punt returns. So you got Mikey Matthews back there, Jonathan Brady back there, and I think that's pretty, and Keon as well. And I think that's pretty much your return unit. One of the things that's like a key point to watch for the season is the new rules, like the new kickoff rules. I think we saw that if you watch the Georgia Tech and Florida State game, like you kind of saw that. And I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on it, but I think it helps us in some regard because our special teams unit hasn't really produced in terms of getting us a bit of an advantage out of that side of the ball. But the new rules might help us because we might not have the athleticism that we would have needed in order to produce with the prior rules.
I mean, I'm willing to say that this team is more athletic than I think that's the beauty of the portal, right? Is that you get guys who you can plug and play. I was impressed by Coe and Morris at the practice that I saw. They were hitting the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs. Coe hit, I want to say, was it 52-yarder?
Yeah, it was somewhere in that range. I think they snapped at the 45, so I don't know what the math ends up being, or 40. But yeah, you're right.
40 would be 57. So I know he missed one from 56, but that was short rather than accuracy. I think we got good kickers, Got to throw in a shout out to the snapper, David Bird, dead ringer for Sam Bankman-Fried, if you've never seen a picture.
It's true.
I hope he's cut his hair by now. That's not a comparison that you want to someone who was born on the site of pure evil in Palo Alto, California. But yeah, they've got, Wilson's good punter. I can't say much about the return guys just because I don't think that really translates to practice and seeing somebody run. They're obviously good athletes. Otherwise they wouldn't be there. So it's just a matter of, hey, how do they react game one? And Davis is going to be a good litmus test for maybe what we can do, or if they want to even show anything that they can do there. And you have Ryan Longwell having worked with the kickers this year as well, which is, always helpful for someone who's been there, especially on the biggest stage, to have done it before.
You think that the 30-yard line touchback is going to incentivize more returns?
I don't know. I don't feel like I saw too many in the Florida State Georgia Tech game. So I don't know. It's a good thought. I mean, if you put Ott back there like you did last year, maybe that gives you a chance to break something big again. But who knows?
Yeah, you don't have the running start as you did in the past. You can't blow into little creases that you might have had earlier. So you're probably looking for guys that have more acceleration than top speed. So I think that's why they're putting more of the agility guys back there that can maybe wiggle their way past a couple of blockers and a couple of, gaps and then get the extra yards. But yeah, I think it's as Trace said, I think it's a good litmus test, when the physicality actually hits, when you're hearing, the pads hit. And I think that's when we'll see if there's actually been an improvement on that side of the ball in terms of at least kick and punt returning. All right.
Well, that was a banger. That was a banger.
That was a great start. Great start. Yeah, I'm glad you picked special teams. All right. Where are we headed to next? Offense, defense? Where are we thinking?
Let's go offense.
Let's go
Just
offense.
get to the quarterback stuff while we still have breath.
Well, first of all, I mean, Wilcox had his presser today. We're recording this on Monday night. He had his presser earlier today. Declined to comment on the quarterback decision. Basically said it doesn't really help them to announce it in advance. Kind of forces Davis to prep for 2 or 3 quarterbacks. They haven't. I don't think they've even released the depth chart yet, or the media notes.
They will usually do that on a Tuesday morning around 10 a.m.
So if it comes out tomorrow, I'm assuming, just like in years past with a lot of other positions, we're going to see a lot of ors next to names.
But not Caleb B. Larmsor because he's at TCU.
He is at TCU. Yes.
He's going to lose to Stanford on Friday.
Yes, it's also true. But yeah, that's kind of where, I mean, I guess we have to start with the quarterbacks, right? Like, Andy, you haven't seen any practice. Like, you're going off of what I say. Yeah, purely off of what you read, purely off of what I tell you, purely off of, other things that you might hear here and there. Like, are you okay with this uncertainty at quarterback going into the season? Like, how do you want this to play out in order for it to be successful?
I think that the only way I'm okay with it playing out is with what Wilcox said around a competitive standpoint. If you force the opponent to prepare for 2 versus 1, but like, no, I'm not okay with this. Like, why would I be okay with this? We've been doing this for like 4 years straight. Even when Chase was here, it was like, is it Garbers or is it the new guy? And it's just like, dude, I'm just so tired. I just kind of wish we had. I don't know. I think like I understand it. Chandler Rogers has had way more game experience, so I understand why it's a decision and it's not open and shut. But like, if truly like Fernando is your QB1 all of last year through a really hard schedule, got us to a bowl game, and I don't know, he kind of looks the part. Like he has the physical attributes that you would look for as far as height. And like when I'm watching the Golden Era videos, like he carries himself like a starter and like a leader of this team. So I would, and again, like I haven't seen anyone throw a pass or run a play, so I can't really say anything else other than that's just like how I perceive it. But it's one of those things where like I know Wilcox really loves to emphasize competition and the ability to compete everywhere. And so I don't mind that, but I do think I would have loved to have seen like an announcement around a starter. We did do that last year, right, with Sam Jackson, and
it was around this time last year.
Didn't go so hot. So maybe he wants to do it differently. But again, like this seems to be a pretty constant thing where we're having quarterback controversy, and I think that like once you make the decision this year, I think Nick said it. It's like, you got to stick the landing on this decision. It can't be another first 4 games of on, off again, on, off again, on, off again. And if we end up losing 2 of those 4 games because we picked the wrong quarterback, that would be your sort of worst case scenario. And I think it would just frustrate a lot of people. But again, haven't seen anyone throw a pass. Haven't seen any execution of the offense. So I would be more curious to see what you all thought coming out of practice.
Trace?
I think it's obviously something that Wilcox said to me is it's all consistency is what they're looking for. And again, I am not an expert. The practice that I saw, both guys had moments, but they were both inconsistent. Both made mistakes that I think aren't like difficult to correct. So either one would be a good choice. I'm obviously biased. Fernando Mendoza is the Charles T. Travers scholarship recipient. And I've talked with him. I know him at least somewhat decently. I haven't gotten the chance to talk to Chandler. I think Chandler's a damn good quarterback. He had, nice deep ball to Nizia Hunter, which I was impressed by. Just tough in the 2-minute drill. But, the worry that I have the most with coming from last year is Fernando. I think he tries to do too much at times, and it's led to turnovers. That I think we saw that in the bowl game, where he had a couple of interceptions where it was just off of trying to find something, trying to make something happen when there wasn't necessarily anything there. And it is a bowl game. It isn't sadly, they don't mean as much as they used to with the playoff and guys opting out and everything. And I know that, it was one of the earlier bowl games too, so they tried to cram in a bunch of practices in order to get the full 15. So guys were maybe not at the top of what they could have been had they had maybe some more time. But all that said, I just want to see who comes out first in the tunnel. It would not surprise me if it's either. I've said several times that I think it's going to be Fernando, just for continuity, having the pulse of the team. He's a good dude. I cannot overstate that enough. But I would feel fine with either guy. They both have plenty of experience. It's just a matter of who's going to be consistent, who's going to make the offense move more. Obviously, you have Jaden next to you, which can help you out a lot. But who's going to make the most of that opportunity?
Trace, how much did the bowl game, if any, concern you around Blesh as offensive coordinator?
0%. It didn't mean a thing. It's Shreveport, Louisiana. It doesn't actually exist.
So do you think that the offense coming out and looking so good at the beginning of that game and then completely fading away was just a matter of, hey, it's kind of a weird bowl season. Sounds like some people went out and had a little too much fun in Shreveport, which is
I think guys were tired.
Just tired.
I think that's fair. And that's football at the end of the day. If you watch the Florida State Georgia Tech game on Saturday, first possession for each team, they both score. And that's the first, you script the first 15 plays, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that I felt that was kind of the same thing there. You script the first 15 and then whatever you're actually able to do shows afterward. And that's something for everyone to kind of look for against Davis, against Auburn, whatever they can do.
I think that's what concerned me the most, though, about that game is the scripted plays worked great. And then once we moved away from it, then all of a sudden everything went to shit. So I was
it's
having
8
a harder
months
time.
later. It's 9 months later. I'll give them a mulligan for that one. I don't know.
I think I think it's a fair point, but also to be the devil's advocate to that, it's Blesh kind of took over as the OC for the bowl game, right? And he talked about it in his presser last week, talking about that was his first time. He was up in the box, and because we were asking him whether he was going to be down on the field or up in the box, and he's like, I like to see the field because you can only get to see it once. But now with the new iPads and being able to see the games and the plays immediately after with the all 22s on the sideline, he's like, I'm going to be down on the field because I want to be able to coach my guys. So they go with the Spavital install all of last fall camp, all through the year. Then Blesh has to play call out of that playbook. I don't think it fit his style. What he wanted to do, maybe to gain an edge going into spring ball of hey, these are the types of plays I'm going to call. This is the type of looks I want. But then not having his entire breadth of plays that he would like to use with that style, I think kind of just led to what we saw at the second half of the Independence Bowl.
This could be a bad point, but I'm willing to make it, which is in the golden era, didn't Wilcox say that this is the third install?
Yeah.
That's just a general thing where they do specific install over a period of time. It's not.
I just figured.
I don't know if that actually means anything.
Oh, okay. I figured it would be summer or fall camp, spring, but then also fall.
right?
No, that's a specific. I think that's a specific practice thing. Like as far as weeks of practice, like you put it in chunks just so I don't know if it's the most complex offense in the world as far as calls. I've heard it's offenses have been simplified over time. You're not calling like specific things with specific route tags like Z post, X curl, Y bench, or whatever. It's more like 2-word type things, so you can know what you're doing a lot quicker.
I think it's even more so beneficial to because it's simplified, and then now they have the quarterback radio, right?
That too.
Up until the 15-second mark of the play time or the. So,
Yeah, good point.
All I know is I've played a lot of CFP 25, and you only need 2 plays.
There's a couple of broken plays in that game too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting note to see, because I think we'll move on to another group, but the biggest thing is I think Trace would agree after seeing those guys. It's like if you want to run a purely RPO offense, right? Pure RPO, short pass game, and just read option. I think Chandler's probably your guy. I think if you want to do a lot,
Texas a little bit too.
Yeah, I think you want to run a little bit more of the medium and in the pocket type of offense, and a little bit more traditional. I think Fernando is the guy. The only thing is none of those guys have really taken the step on the opposite side. Like Chandler didn't really improve himself over fall camp in the medium to long passing game. Nando didn't really get better in his decision making in the RPO game. So that's kind of, I think, where everyone kind of grew, but they grew together, and it's like no one really separated themselves. And that's why I'm inclined to go with Trace too. It's like if you want to do that, if they've grown together, then you stick with continuity, and I think you stick with Mendoza. I don't think you throw that wrench of another guy in there again. That would be my, as I'm hearing you guys talk, I think that would be my decision making process in it, because you brought Chandler in to push Mendoza and maybe overtake him as the starter. But if he's only reached Fernando's level, is the breaking of continuity enough to force that change? Which I don't think there is.
And purely just from again, last season, I feel like Fernando grew a lot game to game. He just seems like a guy that improves a lot from game situations. So I don't know. I would throw my hat.
That's what we were talking about all of last year, right? When we were having the quarterback struggles, we're like, maybe Nando is just a gamer. He's just one of those guys that's maybe okay in practice, but when the lights turn on, it's like a different version of him appears on the field. And that's kind of what we saw the last 3 games. My only rebuttal to that, and I'm not in those coaches meetings, so I wouldn't think this, but just from a rational thought process, is what we saw Nando do in the final 3 games of the year, is that his ceiling? Is that his floor? Was that just lightning in a bottle in terms of form, that he was just good in those 3 games? How there's no gauge of that, because he only played 3 games to end the year. And I think that might go into the thought process of because he hasn't excelled in practice, right? And so you're going through that process again of maybe he's a gamer. Do we give him another chance to maybe improve?
8 games total, so he's
true. Yeah,
he's got 2/3 of a season.
Yeah,
right. But
he started. Yeah, but he started start to finish 3 games. 4 games.
3. No, 3. He started the Oregon State game in week 6, and from there on out, he just happened to get
games?
the worst part.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. You're right. My math is wrong.
3 wins.
Yeah, 3 wins. 3 wins is what I'm thinking about, not 3 games.
He excelled.
Yeah, you're right.
Those games against Washington State, Stanford, and UCLA. He made me look very good during the Stanford game. No, it was during the second touchdown pass to Tron. I was telling the people I was with who are non-football people, okay, they're playing safeties down in the box. They're not respecting the quarterback. He can throw over the top now, and boom, hits Tron on a post route. So Made me look good. I appreciate it
That's
for that.
amazing.
You know
Yeah,
your
I
shit,
mean-
Trace. You know your shit.
Apparently, I never thought this was possible. Like 8 or 9 years ago, whenever we started this.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's the number one question. Is like 36 games started versus 8, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like, but I don't know. I think that I think last year should matter enough, and I agree with you, Rob. If you're not pushing beyond what is already a known quantity, I can't see a world to give up on that known quantity, especially seeing how much development came after, to your point, it wasn't even a full season and you saw this individual grow a lot. And as I said before, like the physical tools are there in a way that we really haven't had. Like, Sam Jackson was tiny. Like, don't find me, Sam, apologies if you listen to this, but like he was like 5'9",
Coming for you if you go to Alabama when they play Auburn.
I cannot confirm or deny where I will be for the next year.
Hey, he's wide receiver. He's wide receiver 3 in the slot, according to Auburn's depth chart for their week 1 game. So
who knows what the heck that means?
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough talk on the quarterbacks. Let's look at some of the other. I think running back's pretty set, right? I think Ott is the dude. He's him.
Callaway, Cardwell can get in there. Javian Thomas.
I do think they'll bring
Thomas is out, right?
Yeah, for now. Wilcox, regarding the injuries, Wilcox has said all of those guys are expected to be back at some point in the season. He doesn't really talk about injuries in depth, but him saying that none of them are season-long outs just does bode well. But like running back wise, I think Trace nailed all the guys. I think Cardwell's probably one of the guys they bring along slowly, at least to start the year, just because he's coming off so many long-term injuries. Which that's why you're playing Callaway. I think that's why you're playing Jet. And then Ott, of course, as the starter. And that group's pretty well cemented.
They
in terms
didn't
of
really
rotation.
play too many of them in the practice I was at.
No.
I mean, honestly, the biggest surprise from that was that Jaden Parker, a freshman from McClymonds, son of Kevin Parker, for those who know who KP, rope coach. I'm used to see him when I was working with video, his kids playing on the field during practice. So
dude, same. That's crazy.
It's nuts. So he actually looked pretty good for what I saw. So
he did. He's got some quickness in him, and he's got a good one cut in him too.
KP played for Tedford, right? So wasn't he pretty solid?
Yeah, at Oregon, I want to say.
Yeah.
So
it's makes in sense. The genes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But that said, Jaden's the guy. He's a superstar.
Yeah.
I think we all know that. That's not hard to see. He's like, I've tried to quantify it. He's either the best. I think he's the best running back Cal's had since Java Best. And that's even putting him over Shane Vereen, which is already a tough call.
Well, what's it? Jaden, I think, is a little over 1K away from the career rushing total.
1,100 yards.
Yeah, from the career rushing. And I think that's, as long as he's healthy, I think he gets that probably by week 8 or 9. I think it's doable.
Yeah.
So
if Florida State plays like they did against Georgia Tech, he's going to put up 250 there.
If Jamal Haynes can do that to Florida State's front 7, oh my goodness, Jaden Ott's going to have a field day.
It's just a matter of what the O-line can do, but we can we can talk about that next if you would.
Oh, it's a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Perfect segue to talk about the O-line.
Still have my fastball, as it were. But so the biggest thing I think from the offensive line is just who is going to play. Vadakani's been injured, so it's a matter of, is he healthy for Davis? If he's not, you have Rush Reamer and Will McDonald, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, in those spots. Wyckoff has been playing center. They've been using Swinney at center as well, along with Dylan Jebdegard.
Mhm.
Tackles, Rob and I talked about this a week and a half ago, where you've got Nick Morrow, who has apparently been very solid left tackle. I saw him. He looked good. I don't know. TJ Session at right tackle. So that's kind of your group that you're going with early. You have Victor Stoffel as well, the Temple transfer. And I'm probably forgetting a lot of guys. So there's a lot to figure out.
Those are just about the right names. I mean, Blesh has said that he's looking to play, I think, about eight guys. So I think that rotation makes sense. The biggest thing is people talked about was like bad snaps over fall camp. But I do think a part of that is given up to rotating 3 guys at center, which, by the way, I don't think it's because they're rotating him or rotating them because they don't know who the starter's going to be. I think they know who the starter's going to be. The only reason they're rotating him is Blesh said this in his presser last week. He was like, I prepped Matthew Cindric and Brian Driscoll to play center last season. Sindo went out with a torn bicep in game halfway through game 1, and I only had one trained center for the longest time. And so I think he's doing that on purpose and rotating guys in at center to make sure he has that. And he's saying those 3 guys, Sweeney, Yemtergaard, Wyckoff, will probably be playing center and guard. So
Wyckoff has center experience from his time at Texas A&M as well.
Yep. So that's my take on that. But I think in terms of the play, there's a lot of unknowns. Like we know Sessions is going to be great at right tackle, particularly in the run game.
He improved a ton last year.
I think Blesh came at the exact right moment for both him and for Nick Morrow. But with Nick Morrow, of course, the story was a tight end in high school, recruited to come here. They gray shirted him. Then they brought him in, transformed him, and they projected him as a tackle. So they transformed him. But like him coming in at that moment and having his body transformed to a tackle, and then getting his technique coached by Blesh, which I think is just like the perfect timeline for him. And so, yeah, once again, but we won't know like what he looks like. We'll know on Saturday when he gets live defensive ends rushing at him and see if he can actually move his feet like we all are so enamored by.
I will say the concept of the term body transformation sounds so weird out of context. It's like you said, go even further beyond earlier, and I was immediately thinking of Dragon Ball Z, putting a dude in the hyperbolic time chamber, whatever.
That's pretty much what we did.
Yeah. I mean, he's 6'8". He's freaking massive.
Yeah.
Watching him, because he came out of Flagstaff for his Flagstaff, Arizona, for his high school football. Not a big football area. Like Phoenix metro area, very good football. Flagstaff, he was the biggest guy by a lot there. And to see him catching passes was kind of hilarious at the end of the day. But yeah, he's putting the hard work. And it's paying off for him. He has the chance to be like a 3 or 4 year starter if this holds up.
Andy, anything you want to add?
I think O-line this is like lining up to me as a season where the strength of this team, I'm okay if we have, it's hard to even say that we have question marks at wide receiver, but it's like we have Tron, right? And then we have some good transfers we don't really know. And then my guy Maven again. So I'm hoping for big things from Maven as always. But I think that the season is shaping up to one where if we talk about the conversation we had earlier around quarterback, we may not necessarily need to have the best quarterback play of all time to be successful. And what I really love about having seen Blesh on these videos is he talks about the O-line as defining the culture of the team. And when I think about the Tedford teams, maybe not necessarily the ones that I worked with, but the Alex Mack tenured teams when we had Coach Mahalichek, and those teams were actually decently defined by the culture of that team was defined by our own line. And even when I was with the team there was a relationship that the O-line had with Riley that was special. And I think that this is the first time I've felt that way in a long while, where we really are defining the culture of our team in the trenches. And I know, Rob, you're optimistic on the defensive line front. But for me, it's really the optimism on the offensive line. And then hearing like this, the tried and true, like Steve Greatwood practice of having them rotate through, have that depth. I mean, we're kind of doing what we were asking them to do 2 or 3 years ago. And this is an opportunity for us to really, I don't know. I see the ACC. There's like not a lot of people that understand like what we do, how we do it. Tremendous amount of first time opponents. The stars are kind of aligning for this to work well. And this is the time for optimism. The glass is very full, but I really think that I'm very excited to watch how this plays out. And if we can just run teams into the ground.
I mean, that's a great take. I think that wraps that part up smoothly. I think the last part we got to talk about the offense is the pass game threats. So got to talk about the tight ends with the wide receivers, right? They're fast, and that's the thing that Trace and I have been talking about. Is they're really fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably
Hunter
the one word you can
in particular impressed me. I know he's not going to start, but he's an impressive player at that spot. I mean, again, Mikey Matthews has been out, but I know that he's quick. I saw him play for Utah last year. Tobias Merriweather, 6'5", burner of an athlete. Trond, we obviously know what he can do. Maven has been productive. Keon Gray's also productive guy during the practices. I'm trying to look up names so I actually know how to pronounce them because that's what I look forward to the most of every year is finding new ways to butcher names. But I was going to talk about, I can't remember the dude's name now. The tight end.
Corey?
It's Corey Dyches.
Yep.
So, okay. And obviously, Endry's solid with what he's been able to do. A lot of tough contested catches from him. He'll have some help with Dyches around. That's going to be weird to say. So I'm not going to be used to that for a while. Let's see. I saw a couple of good things out of Josiah Martin, too. I don't think he's going to play too much, but just because he's a true freshman. But there's ability there. Mason Starling, the Birdman, he's going to have some ability to play. Obviously, if you're a 6'6" guy at wide receiver, they're going to try to find something for you, and hopefully he stays healthy. But it's a group that can. It's just a group of whether they've adjusted to the quarterback situation. When we talked previously, it seems like the quarterbacks kind of have their guys that they go to. Fernando is linked up with Trond and Endries. Chandler has Keon Graves. And a couple of other dudes. Hunter was honestly the best one with all the quarterbacks, but it's just a matter of who makes the biggest impression right away, who gets on the field. I want to see Merriweather, on those go routes and just running by dudes. So yeah.
Not much for me to add. I think Trace nailed the guys in the rotation pretty spot on. I think the last guy that I might add, or the two dark horse guys that I might add, if there are any injuries down the line, Cole Basia, the transfer from Colorado, has looked very good. But the walk-on that's really impressed me is Isaac Torres.
Heard good things.
He is. I think the staff is very, very high on him. I think he's a development guy that they want to see long term. But he's had some spectacular catches, and I could see him, working his way up the depth chart if injuries were to come into play at any given point. And then, of course, I can't forget about my boy Trevor Rogers. Of course,
he was. I thought he was solid as well. Good route runner, quick. So, As our dear friend Jesse, 10 minutes from my work. So
yeah, as our dear friend Jesse says it, he has SEC speed. But Andy, your thoughts?
Anymore.
He's just really fast.
Yes.
No, I love it. I think Trace nailed it.
All right.
Sweet.
Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. Let's flip over to the defense. Where should we start? Are we starting in the trenches or are we working off the back end?
Let's work middle out. I think that's the funniest way to look at this.
All right. Well, I mean, it is the brains of the defense, right?
Yeah.
So we got the inside
Everything
linebackers.
emanates from there. As a former inside linebacker, I'm biased. It is the best position on defense.
The guys that'll have the green sticker on their helmet. But I think the starters are pretty set, right? I think we're looking at Teddy Buchanan, the transfer, coming in and slots in right next to Cade, who was the Pac-12, the last Pac-12 freshman defensive player of the year.
Until we all come back together in 5 years.
True. Last for now.
Until we meet again. Across the Rainbow Bridge.
But yeah, it is those two guys. I think there's a question mark about who might be behind them, especially because of the surprise. I think was moving of Nate Rachina to tight end.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have guys there like Hunter Barth. You do have guys with Liam Johnson from Princeton who's still hurt, but I think he's going to be working his way back. Vanderland is also another one of those guys that they're high on. And then of course the flip recruit from Stanford, Luke Farrelly. I think Luke's going to be good for us. I don't think this is the year he's good for us, but he does look the part. Mm-hmm. He looks the part.
Yeah. Just a matter of getting him in there, and then the Alaskaman himself, Aaron Hampton.
Yes.
Has made some plays.
Yes.
So, but Barth has kind of put himself into the conversation there to be kind of the third rotating piece. Liam Johnson will be when he gets back. Is he the Italian meatball or whatever? Or am I remembering names wrong?
I think you might be right.
Jersey. Yeah,
it might be the other
Jersey. He went to Princeton.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, whenever Hampton does something, I know the team yells out "Go Alaska" or something of that sort.
Yeah.
So
and
I do.
I do. Guy
love
whose practices have been interrupted by moose before.
That's awesome.
Beautiful,
That's awesome.
Beautiful place. Even though it is one of the weird states. So. Yeah.
But yeah, Andy, any thoughts on the inside linebackers?
Decisive.
I'm so excited to watch Cade play again. What a joy that was last season, and I think we just got to see how he's going to pan out from a little bit more consistent play. But he's got the knack to make huge plays, and I'm really, really excited about that. I'm curious, do you think that how much do you conclude David Reese as a linebacker in that an outside line, outside line?
We'll get to it, Andy. We'll get to it.
But I think that I'm really curious, Rob, to hear, your perspective, because I think before when we synced up on fall camp, it was okay, this is as optimistic as you've been on the defensive front. So I'm wondering, where is that pressure going to come from? Do you expect it to come from the linebacker side, or do you think it's going to come from, more of the actual linemen down in the trenches?
I mean, that's Sermon's MO as a defensive coordinator has been mostly to bring four and kind of, the one quote that I have of him was there's no magic in the calls, right? You've got to make sure the guys execute. You can call, a 7-man blitz all you want. It's up to them to execute. You can call cover 3 all you want. It's up to them to read the route, make the right read, step in front of a route, that sort of thing. So, but his MO has been pretty base heavy. They'll throw some exotic stuff in every once in a while. It's just a matter of, hey, can they tackle? Can they get guys in third and long situations and kind of, stop the guessing at that point? So, and I do like Cade. He is, through my investigation of the Cal football roster page, he is one of 4 players to have linked a TikTok account to, which is
his profile page.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But I don't know, him and I like Buchanan, real fast guy. Just kind of funny that former Cal coach and Tim Plow went to Davis, and then we took his best player. So kind of boned him over there, but he's still going to have experience with Cal players when he comes back in on Saturday. But it's a good group at the end of the day. Sermon knows what he's doing with inside linebackers. It's just a matter of that carrying over to the rest of the defense.
I agree. All right. With that, are we going down into the trenches or are we stepping out into the backside?
You're making me choose, which is never a good thing.
go DBs because
all right, let's go DBs.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the DBs. I think the rotation, at least at starter, is pretty set. I think you got Woodson at one of the safety spots. You got Miles Williams at the other safety spot. I think you have
Miles Williams.
Not BMW, regular Miles Williams. And then I think you have Noel takes one of the cornerback spots. I think Marcus Harris takes the others. Yeah. And then
Little John.
I think you have Little John plays the slot. And then I think the fourth corner is Lumagia Hurts.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I think it makes the most sense. There's not really much to talk about the starters, except I think the athleticism floor has been raised with all of those guys. Marcus Harris in particular. I forgot to mention him. He's one of those guys that they're using at punt return and kick return as well. But you notice the speed. You notice the recovery speed. We talk about those cliches when it comes to college athletics or sports in general, right? You can mask a little bit of bad coaching with athleticism. And sometimes I don't think it's the coaching. I think maybe it's just he makes a bad read or takes a bad step, maybe loses leverage for a second. But you have these guys now with that athleticism to be able to make up that ground again. And you see that with Harris. You see that with Noel. And they're coming into their own there. And then, of course, the experience, I think, with Marcus Harris, having played at Oregon State and then at Idaho and now here, he's gone through the ringer with college athletics. Noel, same, it's his senior year. He's been through the ringer with UNLV and now here. Woodson at safety, he's been here all his life. Miles Williams, all his life. So I think the experience is there with the raised floor of the athleticism really bodes well for this unit. And then the two guys that they brought in on that side that have come along, in my opinion, fairly well, of course, is Ryan Yates and Josiah Wagner. Those two guys have definitely taken steps. They flashed. They looked a little confused when they were first here, the first week of camp. But I think as camp progressed, you saw them start to make plays. You saw them start to make better reads. They were getting more comfortable in the scheme. And then because they were comfortable in the scheme, they let their instincts take over, which of course made them high regarded prospects, which is why they landed at places like LSU and Terry Venables' defense at Oklahoma. Right. So it's interesting. This group, there's guys that are inexperienced behind a cemented group that is experienced. So I really like how that team is set up. All the starters are experienced, and then you could sub in one or two guys that are inexperienced, and you still have all of the other guys kind of help that and maybe cover if he does make the mistake.
I will say, Rob, you may have a bit of Premier League on the brain. You said Terry Venables instead of.
Oh, did I say Terry Venables?
See,
Brent Venables. Yeah, I do.
Terry Venables, if I'm reading off his Wikipedia page correctly, managed and played for clubs including Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspur, and Queen's Park.
Yep. Look, you know what? To be fair, too, I think the first week of camp, I kept writing Joe Brady instead of Jonathan Brady. I did that for a week.
Fair enough.
You should have gone with Mike Brady or something too.
Yeah.
But I agree though. I mean, that's the DBs. How is it? I find I have a very hard time not seeing how this is not an elite position group.
It's up to them to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I don't think talent is an issue. Yeah. I think just last year was a down year and they just need to make up for it this year.
And it'll be defined by, one, their play, and two, how well the defensive line can get pressure. Yep. And, how well the front seven can make those opportunities for them and force teams to be one-dimensional. And that's all we're looking for. There's no lack of talent, as you've been saying. Admittedly, I find it tough to focus on the DBs during practice because what I know is like the box front seven type deal. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you have a head coach who's a former DB. You have two DB coaches who have both played defensive back at the Division I level. There's plenty of knowledge there. It's just a matter of, again, putting that all together with the holistic nature of defense, which does, in fact, lead us into the outside linebackers and defensive line.
Perfect segue, Trace. You still got it. You still got it. You still got it.
But if I can speak on the outside linebackers,
please.
You have David Reese, Xavier Carlton. I'm going to screw up some names here. Ryan McCulloch as well, who has flashed. He flashed for me last year in the Idaho game, to be honest with you, where he had a nice pass rush move at the end. Let's see.
You have Shek
Salu. Shek Salu Fall. That's a
Shek
cool
Fall.
name.
Shek. They just call him Shek. So Shek Fall.
Yeah. So Shek Fall, he's solid on the outside there. I don't know too many. BMW, Big Miles Williams. Beyond that is going to be interesting to see how they all coagulate. Obviously, for those of you who watched the Golden Era video on the defense, David Reese is loud.
Yeah.
You can hear him from the stands in practice. He says
talks a lot.
Many words that had to be bleeped out, which was hilarious to me. And, win or lose on downs, he would shit talk, which you can't not appreciate that. Someone who's willing to go to war every time, no matter, what the situation is. And Carlton, I've been a massive fan of his since he was a recruit. Just coming out of high school at 6'6", 240, obviously are going to be coveted, goes to Utah, comes here, does pretty well this year. If he puts all of his athletic gifts together, he has a massive wingspan, big guy. I mean, we saw it against UCLA last year. He dominated. Him and Reese both dominated those tackles. It's almost sad that they don't play UCLA this year, so they can't beat up on those guys some more. But there's, again, like we've been saying, there's talent here. We've seen the talent in games and in practice. And I think that was part of why the quarterbacks were inconsistent at the practice I saw, is because, and I've said this to Rob before, but defenses generally, you kind of learn your opponent's tendencies, and when you're playing the same guys over and over again, you know what they're going to do, and you can take advantage of that. And with defense, in my opinion, being maybe 80% effort, 20% planning, if you can out-effort a guy and you know what he's going to do, then it's no wonder why the defense would be ahead during these times. So that's why I find it so hard to tell, hey, what are the quarterbacks going to do? What's the offense going to be able to do? It just depends. But I do think these guys have the athletic ability to be great.
Full stop. I love
that. Yeah, I think the only other position that we can kind of just glance over before we go over our predictions on the year, I think it's the defensive tackles. I think this is probably the deepest group of defensive tackles we've had.
I hope so.
It feels, at least on paper, it feels like it. I think Stanley, being fully back, like after taking a year off, and then his first year being back in football last year, and then now having gone through the cycle again and being in rhythm, I think really helps. I think bringing in Aiden from Notre Dame really helps as well, just from an experience standpoint. Ricky Correa, I think is, he's the entrenched starter at that position. And then, TJ, I can't say enough nice words about TJ because, he's schematically, like Wisconsin brought him in to be a part of that Leonard defense. The Leonard defense is very similar to the defense that Wilcox runs, but
it's basically the same.
Yep. But Leonard is no longer at Wisconsin, which is why we might be able to see the fruits of his labor of getting developed in that system here at Cal, and it's looking like it so far. Like,
He's
some of the
beating the stereotype about people from Iowa. Do you know what Iowa stands for?
what does Iowa stand for?
Idiots out walking around.
He's definitely not walking around on the field, that's for sure.
My cousin's husband is a Nebraska grad, or not Nebraska grad, but Nebraska native. So it's a lot of things to say about Iowa.
But yeah, I think this is definitely the group. I think Trace, Andy, like all of us who've watched Cal football enough, particularly these Wilcox years, like the best defense we had was when we had a guy like Chris Palmer that played defensive tackle or nose tackle. And so now we have those guys that are able to do it, and if they can every snap eat up a guard and a center, God, that front four is just going to be able to feast if they project and play as we expect them to over the next week, or over the next weeks and season. So yeah, I'm excited about this defensive tackle group, just because they're not the guys that are going to get the stats, right? Like we don't have there's no Brett Johnson type in there. There's no Aaron Donald type in there. Like they're not going in there for the sacks or the tackles for loss, but
there's no Sue.
Yeah. So, but if you see our edges get one-on-one opportunities, it's because those guys are demanding the attention of the interior three guys. Any notes on the defensive tackles inside interior linemen? No?
Nate Burrell.
Yeah, Nate Burrell as well.
If you mentioned, but yeah, he's solid. Improved. Obviously, he's put on some weight, which helps him. He got kind of pushed around his first real experience, but he's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. I think that's it, boys. I think we're talking for an hour on this team. I think it's a good place to kind of wrap this all up. Season starts in a few days. But let me get your predictions. Let me get what's our win-loss come Thanksgiving weekend?
Come Thanksgiving weekend or the week after Thanksgiving weekend?
Is it the week after? Oh, it is the week after Thanksgiving. You're right. 30th, yeah. What are we looking at? Andy, are you furiously writing down, Trace?
I'm thinking.
I wrote it all out.
Oh, okay.
Ready in a visual medium.
Ready for my run through?
Yeah, sell it.
Do it.
Hold on to this roller coaster.
Oh, all God.
Right. Davis, W.
Okay.
Auburn, L, sadly. San Diego State, W.
Okay.
Florida State, L, but I don't know. I could be convinced into otherwise. Miami, Cristobal sucks. Win. Pitt's a loss on the road.
Okay.
NC State, I got a dub. And then I got us going Oregon State dub, Wake Forest dub, Syracuse dub, Stanford dub, SMU loss.
Damn, you a 4-1 to end the season?
Yeah.
I can see it.
Wow.
That's not where I'd put the loss in there, but yeah.
Where does that put us at the end of the season?
That would be
8-4.
8-4 with a 6-2 conference, I think, right?
6-2 conference record. That'd be the first winning.
I need to
winning conference record under Wilcox.
Yeah,
it's coming in our first year in the ACC.
Yeah, we're gonna have a winning conference record, but I need to get some money on an outside shot for Cal to get to the ACC championship. Trace,
what do you got for me, Trace?
Okay, so let's go through. Davis, I'm going with a win, obviously. Auburn, going to Jordan Hare, murder an Eagle, win.
Nice.
San Diego State, win. Florida State,
nice.
I don't trust going into Florida. That's a loss. Miami, yeah, I can't argue about Mario Cristobal. Call that a win.
Yeah.
We look enough like West Virginia. It's going to be a win. We can say eat shit hit.
Yes.
North Carolina State, let down, loss. Oregon State, the good old Bear Beaver matchup. That would be a win. Had to get that one in for my dad. Wake Forest. You know what? Let's win against the smallest FBS school by enrollment. Syracuse, win. Stanford, win. SMU. We're confused by Gerald Ford Stadium not being named after the president Gerald Ford, but a different Gerald Ford. Loss.
No way.
I don't trust post-Thanksgiving games. So I think
Trace and I both went lost to SMU.
I don't bet against all those people with money.
There's something weird about it, man.
Even though
there is.
They did not play well against Nevada. That was
no.
I think it's just like the ghost of Sonny Dykes.
But everyone was also weird in that Nevada game because like the crowd didn't show up because it was like raining and storming, and they didn't know if it was going to continue. But then by halftime, it was like sunshine and bright. Like it was a weird.
I guess it scares me that they have a good tight end in R.J. Maryland, who is the son of Russell Maryland, who played for a long time in the NFL as a defensive tackle. So, and if you're a longtime Cal fan, you should be scared of the tight end position.
Yeah.
Trace, you would have Cal going 9-3 and also
why not?
6-2 in conference.
Yeah.
So, Rob.
All right.
I'm far too optimistic.
Mine's I'm going with the one that, because I've run through this in my head so many times, I'm going with the one that keeps coming to me. Okay. Davis, win. Auburn, win. San Diego State, win. Florida State, loss. Miami, win. Pitt, win. North Carolina State, win. Oregon State, loss.
Oh.
Wake Forest, win. Syracuse, win. Big game, win. SMU, loss.
No way.
I'm with you guys on this. I just don't trust that game at all.
The ghost of all those women that Craig James killed.
Oh, God, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9-3.
9-3.
So, I mean,
Also
Rob is
6-2.
heartbreak. Rob is heartbreak city here because
because I'm a loss every 4 games. My thing is
3-0. Then we lose to Florida State. 3. Then we will literally be 6-1 and lose to Oregon State.
Kind of MO against Oregon State. Everything goes to hell.
Yep. Who's coaching Oregon State now?
It's it's one of their coordinators.
Trent,
defensive coordinator.
Internal. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one thing is like I don't get as scared from Oregon State as I normally would because of the fact that they are in the Pac-2, and I think like they've lost a lot of talent. And I think like this is the first time I would definitively be able to look at that team and say that our talent level from a talent to talent perspective is significantly higher. Like normally they were recruiting very well. They had athletes.
They developed really well, especially on the offensive line.
I think the biggest question mark with Oregon State for me, the biggest thing is they have a good quarterback. They brought in, I don't know, Andy, if you saw, but they brought in Giovanni McCoy, who was the quarterback for Idaho when they almost beat us.
He was good.
Yeah, he was good. I think we all can agree he was good. So he's their quarterback. So that's the only like.
You don't know. So that place inspires people.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're gonna have a hard time, man. I just think like the talent level, we've gotten a boost, and they've regressed, and it just gives me odd hope. But I love the losses across the board to SMU. I mean, all of these are heartbreak city. Rob's in particular is the most devastating because you're talking about going to the ACC championship game and losing that because you lose to SMU. Like that's like a very if you're a 2-loss team or a 1-loss team in conference, 2-loss team in conference going into the final weekend. Man, I don't know if you're gonna. I think that would probably get you to contention for the final game. Especially given that Florida State's already gotten an in-conference loss.
And they're going to lose again to somebody.
I just hope it's us.
So.
I hope it's us.
Yeah, I don't have faith, though. Tallahassee is a scary place.
All of these are setting us up for Max Payne. All of them. I mean, Trace and mine is basically after the Pitt game, I go WWWWW and then lost at SMU. So you're like, oh my gosh, we could do it. Season ender. And then you have Trace's lost to NC State and the same thing, WWWW, lost to SMU.
It's got to be painful as possible. Florida State does have tough conference games. They play at Clemson, or not at Clemson. They play at home versus Clemson, at Miami, which, Miami doesn't draw. And they have UNC as well.
I will say, though, I think all of our predictions, if it pans out like the way that we think it is, we probably end up in the top 25 at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think we end up somewhere in that. Yeah, I think we end up somewhere in the 18 to 25 range. If we end up being like a 9-3 team.
Yeah, if that happens, then it's a good year, historically good year.
Yeah,
so.
The 9-3 would be one of the best seasons we've had easily in the last 15 years.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up for us here on the Golden Bearcast. Trace, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time as always. You're welcome back anytime of the year that you want to come talk about Cal athletics.
Hopefully tax season doesn't kill me. It's trying right now.
Trace, can you be my tax guy? Did we just learn that today?
Me to be your tax guy? I will give advice, but I'll be honest.
Let me tell you this:
I can't.
The guy that remembers that Nick Morrow went to high school in Flagstaff, Arizona, and not only that Flagstaff, Arizona is not a good place for football talent. Yes, that is the memory. There. That's the memory that I want with my tax guy. That's it.
We'll stop.
I can only give advice. I don't want people to hire me at this rate. The fees are too high. I do work at a company called CLA, which is just Cal rearranged. So,
love it. I will look up the rate.
So fitting.
I love it. Yeah, Trace, thank you so much for coming on. And
it's always fun talking to you guys.
Always just so impressive to me how well you have retained and continue to just blow me away with stats on this.
I know 4 things.
Here's the real upgrade, Trace, is that you went from having to know all of these things about high schoolers to now knowing them about college students. And for that, I think that's a better place to be in.
Yeah. No, I know 4 things. Cal football, pro wrestling, for some reason, all of the Pokemon, and now tax regulations. So we hit one of those 4. We're good, boys.
Well, that's it for us on the Golden Bearcast. As usual, you can find all our written stuff at writeforcalifornia.com. You can find our podcast on all podcast services, including now YouTube podcasts, which apparently I had no idea Google Podcasts has disappeared, so it's now merged into YouTube Music/podcast. So now we're on there. It took me a while to do that last week, but we're up on there now. And then all the other podcast services. If you see us on campus on Saturday, please come say hello. We'd love to meet and talk Cal athletics.
Give Rob money so he can keep on doing this.
With that said, as always, boys, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.